Guys, welcome to this quick live with my really good friend Heather Havenwood. And we just want to kind of cut right to the point. At the end of the day, she is not only a badass author of the previous book called Sexy Boss, she's in the middle of actually launching a brand new book, which has been out for maybe a couple months now, called
Yes,
Uncage Yourself.
yes.
Why should you read this? All right, so I'll give you the quick description. It is the fearless method to turn your knowledge into income, impact, and influence, and to live a badass life of ultimate freedom. So I will totally raise my hand and say that sounds awesome. I would love to do that. And guys, just in terms of a little bit of social proof, so she does have a foreword by Frank McKinney, also by Mike Alden, who is a three times Wall Street journalist and New York Times bestselling author.
Yes.
So it does have the credibility, has just absolutely incredible life stories, a beautiful message, and ultimately calls to action to help you become a uncaged badass. So with that, Miss Heather, super stoked to have you on here, and I think
Thank
people
you.
just need to hear about your book. So before we do that, let's just share a little bit about you. Who is Heather, and what are you up to now? And yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for just putting this on. Yeah, this is my fourth book, and I say that because my main first book was really Sexy Boss, and it just kind of came out really flow and easy in 90 days from concept to completion. And then
Mm-hmm.
from that book, I built an entire brand around it, podcast. I was interviewed over 500 times. And so
Nice.
I share that because this particular book, this is my fourth book, and I have some in between ones that were kind of like geared towards niches like podcasting and things like that. This was
Mm-hmm.
like my next big book. It was like really for me has been this next level because in 60 Boss it was 2011 and I've changed a lot, you know. So this was my COVID baby. So COVID happened. I was like, oh my God, I got this time. I can write another book. And I thought for sure this is going to be busted out in like 6 months. And, 2.5 years, 3 years later,
A
here we
little bit longer.
are, right? Like it's no longer COVID. But it's been interesting because in this book I wanted to share a little bit more like personal story with like
Mm-hmm.
my framework that after being in this weird industry I call that we're in, which is kind of the information marketing speaker industry. I've been behind the scenes of very large companies. I've also been partners with other companies, very large, and built from zero to millions and back and all everything. I've just seen behind the scenes for so long. And I started to see that there's kind of a formula, you know, don't fuck with the formula. And there's a formula. And when they mess with the formula or try to be creative around the formula, like it doesn't work. And
Mm-hmm.
so the uncaged is really like about the formula. It's like the secret formula. And one of the stories I talk about in that book is Joel Olstein. I've heard of
Mm-hmm.
him, right?
Yep.
If anyone has not heard of him, he's a preacher, but he's really an information marketer. And he's the largest church. His church is the largest church by revenue in the United States of America and has been every year, like by a lot. Like they put up this kind of like top 25 by revenue, and he's like a lot. And it's about $250 million a year in income revenue,
Okay.
top line revenue, and that's just the nonprofit of the church. He also has a for-profit publishing business.
Oh
So I
wow.
say all that because like he does the formula. Like he's amazing. I love him. But at the end of the day, every preacher in the entire world
Mm-hmm.
preaches off the same content. It's called the Bible. So in our world, when we talk about like content is king and your niche and your hook, it's like the Bible, you get what you get, right? The Bible hasn't
Mm-hmm.
changed, right? In 5,000 years or however you want to look at that. So why is he unique? Why does that church $250 million a year and other churches barely keep their lights on? What's
Right.
the difference? It's not like the content's different, right? So, and I think that's one thing our world has always preached is like your content's unique and blah, 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 and your framework. Well, like I said, the Bible, you get what you get. Every preacher gets the same book, and every preacher gets the same Jesus, and every preacher gets the same God. And like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, why is yours different? So there's a framework around it. And so this book was really about me sharing the framework and then kind of my story about how I've failed a lot, but also won a lot using and understanding kind of bumping my head against the framework. That makes
That's
sense.
why I was supposed to say I love books so much. I'm personally more of an audio guy, just that's how I like to consume them. But like
Yeah.
whether you're audio, whether you're visual, it's so amazing. I think I think the average American maybe reads one book a year or something like that versus like your top leaders, like they're reading like minimum kind of like one book a month, if not more.
Yeah.
The learning curve and how much like of an unfair advantage it gives you to be able to read something that another person has put their blood, sweat, tears, time, energy, money into, that all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's just like, oh, okay, like that one thing that you learned totally the hard way has completely just like cut that learning curve for me and just put me in this space where it's like, oh, well, this is freaking helpful. And obviously you having a formula to be able to go behind the scenes, which your average individual just does not get that opportunity. That by itself is tremendously powerful.
Yes.
So, like, what made you want to share this formula and to get that out there?
Well, it was COVID. And I just had this kind of moment of like, I think it's time for the next book and to really actually share my truth about this formula. Because my
Hmm.
book, Sexy Boss, was about how I made millions of dollars, and then the next year I was literally bankrupt, and how I overcame the mental mindset around that, and how I had to kind of have this comeback tour and had to move through that mental mindset. And so that's what
Hmm.
that book was really about, like how do you overcome that. This was more about, it's over 10, 15 years later, about what actually is the formula. Because after that time, I had created a dating business to 1 million, and then created another weight loss company from nothing to 1.5 million.
Wow.
And then my partner took it, stole it, whatever you want to call it. So like I kept doing it over and over again. I'm like, oh, there must be like a formula that I'm doing. But once I started to really realize where I learned that formula, it's not like I learned it in college. It was because I was behind the scenes of so many other very successful, let's call them information marketers. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's the only way I can say it. What makes the difference? And even in today, in our world where information is now so readily accessible, right? It's called Google and YouTube and now Chatty. What is now the industry, and how do you actually really make your own stake on it? Because again, I go back to Joel Osteen, it's not the content. It's not the content. And I just want people to really get that. Why is it Joel Osteen? He has the same Bible every preacher in the world has. Why is his company at $250 million a year?
Hmm.
It's not the content. It's not the hook, really. And it's not only the headline. It's it's something else. It's a very distinct formula that moves the needle with information marketing business, and even products too. Because I did a weight loss company with a physical product around it, and we used the same formula. Long story short, so that was where I really wanted to come out and share that personal story. So yeah,
Remind me, I know you have a name to this formula. What did you call
yeah,
it again?
it's called Uncaged. So into the book Uncage Yourself, and I went back and forth on the name. As creators, you're like, what's the name? Right? It's because
Hmm.
I think that in the front of the book has these chains. So I love The Matrix, the movie The Matrix.
Oh yeah.
I'm a bending spoon girl. So I feel like right now, more than ever, even during the C word, I won't say it anymore, the covered word, 2020, I felt very closed in at that
Hmm.
time, and especially around our voice. And it's still happening, and just a different topic every day, right? And we're all kind of fighting for this voice of our authentic self. And I think right now, more than ever, now's the time to step into your voice and your true essence and uncage yourself. So um, that's the intention, is I want to empower men and women. But the reason I emphasize women is I think that on a just a social level,
Hmm.
we're just not taught to be loud. We're just not taught to be loud. The little Jimmy in the back, it can be loud. He's a boy, but the girl's
Yeah.
nice and cute and sweet and shh, don't tell us. And all these little things that when we're all of a sudden in the 30s and 40s and we're like, go out and be loud, it's okay now. You're like, oh no, yeah. So I want to encourage women more to get out there and be authentic, and not just recreate what social norms tell them they should be. So
Yeah, and that definitely can be challenging to do, especially when that's been the parenting, the training, everything
yeah,
that you grow up with. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
I can only imagine what that's like. And having a mom that is in a very independent, powerful C-suite position, like, I love women like that, that take control, that are like, okay, and
Yeah.
whatever you want, you're able to take it and go after it. But there's a lot of women that do not feel that level of confidence. They don't feel like they're that badass. They feel like they need to be a little bit more maybe held back or not as loud or whatever. Now I know you've worked with anywhere from like the beginning entrepreneur up to like
Yeah.
influencers and kind of everything in between.
Yeah.
Does anyone stand out to you just in terms of like, really cool like testimonies or just like results that they've gotten that you were excited about?
The person that comes to I mean, I'm kind of surprised that person's coming to my mind. I worked with this guy named Alex Mendozian. People who've been around a long time maybe know him.
Mhm.
And he was a friend, a mentor, a boss, taught me a lot,
Yeah.
um, in everything. And he taught something at one point. I don't know if he's doing anymore, but he taught this thing called leading from behind. And I love that because in our world and even in society, we kind of bow down to the loud, right? And we bow down to the ones that are out there. But there's a ton of people that I believe are designed, even in their human design, because I believe that human design, or some are supposed to be creators and stars. But there's this whole other world of people that they're uncaged in their own way by being the supporters, right? In the wealth dynamics, Robert, forgot his last name, but wealth dynamics talks a lot about that. So our
Hmm.
society praises the star, but I think that one of the things that I wanted to encourage, and especially Alex taught me a lot, is like there's a strength from the leader from behind, and there's a strength to be able to lead from behind, right? It doesn't always have to look a particular way. So I want to encourage that whatever that everyone else's strength is to do that, and that's an uncage. Uncage doesn't always look like
Yeah.
being on the front. It doesn't always look like that, and I want to encourage people that it doesn't always look that way. Even someone who's obviously in our world right now a lot in the headlines is Elon. Like him or not, and you got to respect the guy. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So he's really loud right now, and that's because he's kind of being forced to, and he is. But at the same time, he has a large amount of people that are leading from behind. You know what I mean? Like people who are
Hmm.
running his companies. And so I think one of the things I wanted to bring up is like when we start to tap into our voice and tap into who we really are and are authentic and uncaging yourself, it doesn't always have to look like one way. It doesn't always have to look like being the creator, being the face. It could be multiple facets. Does that make sense?
And I personally love that, especially so when I had my corporate job, I cashed in the 401 and said, okay, like I'm going to make this happen. Like you don't know what you don't know, especially
Right.
if there's no one in your family that teaches you this stuff. I mean, even if you do go through some entrepreneurial stuff through school, most of this is hands-on or like in specific workshops or things that
Yeah.
are tailored towards this. You have to figure a lot of this shit out. Like, okay, am I good at this? What does this look like? What's the value I want to bring? How do I serve my audience at the highest level? How do I streamline this and create a business and not be in the business all the time? And I think your concept helps
Yeah.
someone to dial that in to get clear on what that looks like so they can be the best version of themselves, but
Yeah.
not because it can be misleading where all of a sudden, hey, you're an entrepreneur, you have to be the face and you have to be the back end and you have to learn how to hire the team. It can be a lot. So I love
Yeah.
you have a methodology that allows you to just kind of be the best version of you, which is really
Yeah. You
cool.
said the word value. I just want to stuck on that for a second. So I talk about this, I believe, in the book. I talk about the Jim Rohn. Jim
Hmm.
Rohn's no longer with us. Mentor, personal development world. Amazing. His work is fascinating to me because it was in the 80s, right? And
I
it's the
love some
90s.
Jim.
But I love Jim, right? And one of the things he says is you're paid for your value in the marketplace. If you start to really look at what that word means, value in the marketplace, okay, well, what changes is what the marketplace values. It's not the value, right? What we valued in the 80s is different than what we valued in the 90s, and what we valued in even 2019 is different than 2025. Like the marketplace is the finicky one, right? We are the ones that the marketplace in general, which is where the funds come and the money comes from, right? Because what people forget is money doesn't come from the air, money comes from people. And so when we want to actually add value, we're adding value to people. And
Yeah.
so that's serving. Our industry, even though there's a lot of egos in our industry, at the end of the day, if you're not serving people
Mhm.
will not pay you, you
Right.
know. So it's a really interesting tactic. So uncaging yourself is really about what is your value in the marketplace. And that's something you're not taught in corporate. You're taught in corporate, this is your job.
Yeah.
And then you negotiate that price point, whatever it was a year ago. And then maybe like in 6 months, you get like an evaluation, right? But
Hmm.
in our world, it's like you can increase your value anytime you fucking want, right? You can increase your prices, you can increase your value. You're like, I want to increase my value. I want to charge 20,000. How can I add more value to that? You can do that
But
tomorrow. You can do that tonight. You can do that today. So that's different concept. That's not what you and I were taught. At least I wasn't in college, right? Go get your
yeah,
degree and then pat you on the head and someone will give you a job. And, there you go.
and rock and roll. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Have fun. No one's taught, like, oh, how can you add value to people?
Hmm.
Well, you have this. What else do people value? What else can you add? Or the stack, as we call it, right? But it really is just adding more value. And nowadays, it used to be the information was valuable. Not anymore. What's value now?
Yeah.
If it's not information, well, what is it? Well, it's one-on-one consulting. Is it? Is that really that valuable now? I use pretty much my ChatGPT for a coach all the time.
Hmm.
So what's the value? So that's what's happened. The marketplace has changed value. And even though this book was written in 2020, I was very big on making it evergreen as much as possible. So I
Sure.
didn't talk about certain um, systems or software or anything because it's be outdated anyway, right? I really talked about like a Jim Rohn level of what is it that we're uncaging to create a life using your knowledge, your gifts, your energy, your presence. What actually is the thing that is your value in the marketplace? And what I couldn't say what was valuable then, even because it's already changed from 6 months ago. What
Hmm.
we value is changing right now every day. What we valued in the end of 2024 and what we value literally right now is completely different, probably.
Sure.
So that's the thing is like, that's the formula. The formula, it's not about the content, it's not about the hook, it's not about that someone's that great. It's really about where's the marketplace right now and how can I add value to them where they're at right now.
Hmm.
It's,
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like when you really become that best version of yourself, and you just say, okay, like here's my skills, here's my assets, my
yeah,
talent, knowledge, ability. How do I combine all that under one? Use them, the principles of what you're talking about, to then say, okay, well, here's the market, and here's what I'm working with, and be able to, I think, approach it from that perspective to determine how do you actually bring that value. It
yeah.
allows you to just be in your zone of genius, and then collect other people around you that are in their zone of genius. So I think just really, do that exponentially so you can have that impact, that influence, that income, um, which
You
I
say
think is an
that
awesome
so
concept.
easily off your tongue. Seriously, it's fascinating. But I know you were not taught that in school at your
Oh
job.
no, no, this has been 9 years of getting my ass kicked.
Yeah, yeah, but that's why I want to acknowledge you. Is like that's just coming out of you purely out of learning and in learning the hard way.
Yeah, and you did it. I mean,
I
you blew it up, and then bankruptcy, and then you went
crashed
up
it
and
and then
down,
blew it
and
up
so it's
again. Yeah, like I've been. So I acknowledge you for that because what you just said, if someone's listening, rewind it because it is. It's not something that was written in a book that you read. You had to figure that out. No one said, "Hey, Brennan, this is your value, and you need to increase your value." And how you do that is you stack some shit, and you're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like
right.
it doesn't make any sense. And you know, people who are on the front of the rooms, big names, they make it look so easy,
Yeah, effortless.
effortless. Those are the masters. However, in a weird way, those masters, doesn't matter who they are, it's not a diss to them. Even they right now are going, oh crap, what I offered, my offer last year, people don't value that anymore.
Hmm.
They're feeling that. They're feeling that. because people are shifting what they value. And so prices are changing, things are shifting. I personally believe, this is my belief, based on what I see sometimes from a 3,000 foot view, is that the old school masterminds at 25,000, they're still around, and they probably always will be around, but it's not a huge value. It's not the value. It's not what I would say if someone says to me, what should I start? Like, I wouldn't say start a mastermind. What actually is it people value today?
Yeah.
And how are you going to create those connections, community, and collaboration, not just content, in a way that is more than just the top 10% or the top 5%?
Right.
What actually is the value? Because people do actually value community, connection, collaboration way more than content now. So how do you create that?
At the end of the day, it's all relationship based, right? So I
It's
mean,
all relationship based.
we've had a relationship for what, maybe 3-ish, give or take,
I
years.
think it's more than that. Yeah.
Might be, yeah. And then, I mean, those
2018.
are the ones that you build and you nurture, and just like anything great, you plant a seed, and before you know it, it turns into something. I think
Yeah.
regardless of whatever is out in the marketplace. So say A, starting with that, B, figuring out what is that zone of genius you can play in, which you talk about. And then I think that the third portion is always be willing to come to the table as a beginner with a learner's mindset.
Mm,
I love Jim. I love, there's so many books that you wind up reading that the way you, I think, eventually get to that point where it naturally rolls off your tongue is because you've heard it through repetition, you've practiced it. And
yeah.
that's why I ultimately wanted to bring you on here, because there's certain books that are worth taking your time to invest in. And even if it's 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, whatever, go through and absorb that and learn from other people's story.
Yeah.
So if they want to get your book, it's uncageyourselfbook.com, right?
It is uncageyourselfbook.com, but I also have a domain. I'll give it to you. Basically, I give people a free copy, and
Okay.
it's heathersfreebook.com.
Okay. A little
And
hack. Okay.
yeah, heathersfreebook.com. And there's actually, you can download a version, the PDF, or you can go to Amazon and buy it, but the PDF, the book. And I think what's interesting, I just want to just wrap on this right here, is, question of what is our value. And as we pour into ourselves in education and learning, exploring, allowing ourselves to kind of go on the edge of
Yeah.
what's edgy,
Mhm.
that is where I think the value is. And I was reading something this morning, and I can't tell you who the author was, but I can see it on the page. And it said that creativity comes from, try to recreate, creativity comes from when two things that don't look like they're meant to be together, you
Mhm.
can actually create from them, and you can move them and mesh them and create something new. Kind of like the lotus flower, right? So I think that's what's happening today. People right now are like, AI's over here, business is over here,
Mhm.
politics is over here. I'm like, not anymore. They're all meshed. They're all connected, and energy and spiritual that over here, religion's over here, like segment. What niche are you in?
Right.
I don't think that's our new world. I think our new world is all of it, all of it's mushed together. And that comes from an old society we were taught. You go to school and you sit in class for an hour and you learn Spanish, and then you go and learn this, and
Mhm.
then you don't bring it all together. And I think where value is in today's world is community, connection, collaboration, but it's also creating a space that people can be all of their things, not just the thing, not just one
Yeah.
thing. So anyway,
Well, I love
Heather's,
that.
thank you.
Heathersfreebook.com. Guys, if you want to get the actual book through Amazon, you can go to uncageyourselfbook.com.
Yeah.
Uncage yourself, really just become a badass, impact, influence, income. Just how do you get more of that? How do you build that inside yourself? How do you share that with others? And Heather has just been a wealth of knowledge, and what I've seen her do with her clients, people that she's mentored and worked with, phenomenal experiences, phenomenal transformations. Go on her page, check her out. I just want to bring this to everyone that is on my Facebook page. Heather, please share this with your audience. I think you have a ton to
Of course.
give, and more people need to hear about it. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing about it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.